Hey, it's Tom Jordan. It is Inauguration Day. We got breaking news on this Inauguration Day as the final hours are in play for Joe Biden's uh, presidency, his one and only term. So many in Joe Biden's world are so far above the law. On this Inauguration Day of President Trump, Joe Biden just pardoned. Many people have not even been charged with anything. Anthony Fauci, General Milley, and the entire January 6th Select Committee who targeted their political opponent with an attempt to put him in prison and keep him from running for president. Yeah, all of them had been pardoned. Like you can't even go after any of them, anyone on that committee. So that's just breaking this morning. I wanted to throw that out there to you. We'll get into that more in just a bit because today we want to talk about this. Donald Trump will today become President Trump for the second time. It is Inauguration Day, January 20th, as it always is, ever since I think the 1920s, unless it falls on a Sunday, then they move to the 21st. Trump's return to the White House, it starts with this historic move indoors because it is freezing. I think it's 1 degree where I am right now, while outside. Frigid temperatures in the nation's capital. They rival some political chills that have been in play for many years now as the MAGA truck rolls down Pennsylvania Avenue. It's clear that his message has not cooled off one bit, and he ran on these things. He's gonna govern on these things. But also, what has not cooled down a whole lot is some of the tension from some of his most ardent opponents, people who just hate this guy. Always have, always will. Maybe not always have. They liked him when he was just a business guy, not a politician. But when politicians see the threat from another guy that's very competent and a politician, they suddenly don't like him. And that includes ones who, on one hand, claim we need more civility in our dialogue, yet on the other hand, are guilty of some of the most uncivil, untrue, and hateful rhetoric themselves against Donald Trump. So here's the self-described leader of civility, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell.
And the Arab American community needs to be reminded and cannot forget. He wants to ban Muslims, he wants to deport Muslims, and he wants to start internment camps. And that's what we are busy talking to every voter. He's telling you what he's going to do. Believe him.
Internment camps?
Yes. He has talked internment camps. You know what, Jake? You may have to visit me in one. I get worried enough when he talks about what he's going to do to his political enemies. But he has talked about them in this with different groups of people.
Yeah, no, he hasn't. I'm sorry, Debbie Dingell. That was untrue, what you just said there. And all these Muslims, you say that he wants to deport. It's not true either. In fact, they voted for him. That's one of the reasons why he got elected. The mayor of Hamtramck in Michigan, the only city in America that has an all-Muslim city council, voted for Donald Trump. Look at what's happening in Dearborn, the largest concentration of Muslims in America. They're starting to realize what you're saying in your district, not really true, they're finding out after so much. That was from the New York Post, where James Dickson, by the way, used to work there for as he was covering this presidency. We're going to get to him in just a moment here because one of Joe Biden's biggest supporters is that woman and this guy here, Adam Schiff, another guy who hates Donald Trump. But Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, she begins a sentence oftentimes with "Let's be civil," and ends it with "Trump is violent. He's like Hitler, and Trump has cracked the foundations of our very democracy." While she aligns herself with a Hamas sympathizer who believes Israel needs to be extinguished. So how are members of Congress, Democrats like Debbie Dingell, who have been vociferously opposed to a Donald Trump ever again being in the White House, a political opponent, a political enemy, which she and others have targeted based on the fact that he is a political enemy? Remember, she's projecting what she just said there. She supported Joe Biden's claim that Trump is a grave threat to democracy and is going to take this nation towards a totalitarianism and even into a dictatorship, yet she's never provided any evidence of that except what's been manufactured by Democratic campaigns like Hillary Clinton's. I want to discuss this subject with James Dickson from Enjoyer.com. Good to have you back on the program, James. Thanks for bringing this up. I look at Debbie Dingell as one of those individuals, for some reason, who is not to be touched by the media or the political elite. And there are still those who, there's still those who claim like Donald Trump is all about himself. Joe Biden's farewell speech was the same absurd rhetoric that
Right.
the U.S. is falling into the hands of a dictator and oligarchs. When you look at the past 4 years, you're thinking, yeah, I think that's what was going on under your administration. So you look at Debbie Dingell, and your podcast at enjoy.com spoke specifically about, you were on X talking about this, about Debbie Dingell, why she appears to be so civil, but behind the scenes, to me, she seems very uncivil and also a very far left. She's not this moderate Democrat that she's portrayed herself to be.
Not remotely. I mean, you saw that clip just then. I didn't even mention that clip in the column. That just shows how desperate she is and how willing she is to say anything and everything. So Debbie Dingell, the Dingell family, they represented Dearborn for like 80 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Then in redistricting, now she has a district in Ann Arbor. And it shows how little her voice carries in 2024, in 2025, that she used that kind of rhetoric and it didn't matter. It didn't move the needle. No one believed it. No one acted it as if it was true. Even Jake Tapper, as she's talking to Jake Tapper didn't believe it. Jake Tapper wasn't buying what she was selling. So to me, when you look at the Democrats, whether it's Debbie Dingell or Joe Biden, their main tactic is they're going to accuse you of something. It's typically going to be racism because that charge still, it used to hold quite a bit of weight in this country. No one wants to be called that. And so that's what they're trying to do. She's trying to say that Donald Trump is anti-Arab racist.
Right.
Thing is, Arabs don't believe it. Thing is, Muslims don't believe it.
Right.
And so the problem with crying wolf is that when there's an actual wolf, you don't have the words and you don't have the credibility. It doesn't matter what you cry because people have been led wrong so many times before. And so when she'll say that Donald Trump wants to put people in internment camps, look, Donald Trump is trying to offer internships in the Arab community, and you're going to make him out to be the bad guy?
Right. Yeah, well, maybe that's what she means by intern camps, because what he really said is, I want to provide internships.
This guy's trying to offer internships and career advancement, and he's being made out to be the bad guy. That's the kind of country we have, Tom. People are so removed from honesty. And so think about it, though, Tom. So 90 years ago, who had internment camps? FDR, a Democrat, 80 years ago, World War II. Japanese internment, FDR, Democrat. Who was responsible for slavery? The Democrats.
Yes.
The Republican Party was created specifically as an anti-slavery party.
But you bring that up to people.
Yeah.
You bring that up, that issue, because I've made the same arguments with some of these just very hateful individuals within the Democratic Party making these claims that the Republican Party is filled with racists and they're the party of racists. And I'm like, no, this is always historically that is completely false. And they say, well, now it's a different Republican Party. I said, no, it's the Democratic Party that's always been about racism. It is still even today. That's what these DEI programs are all about judging people based on the color of their skin, on their race, on their ethnicity. That's their focus. It's always been the case. The KKK was the Democrats, whole thing. I mean, so you get people like a Debbie Dingell, and, the inauguration is today. I think enough people have woken up, including Muslims, including Jewish people who have been told that Republicans and Donald Trump hate Jews, which is like demonstrably false. But the rhetoric still goes out there, all this rhetoric about it. Is there any willingness, do you think, with these never-Trumper Democrats to work with this president that they've effectively compared to Hitler?
I don't think it matters whether they do at this point. I think his coalition is so big and stable, and I think there's so many reasonable Democrats who will, that the Debbie Dingells of the world, they can keep trotting out Democrat talking points and saying what the party wants. But it's going to look like in a few years, what I'm saying now is new information to a lot of people. What you're saying is new information. Because when they see Debbie Dingell, they see this kindly old, kind of shuffling old woman. They see the grandmother they never had.
Yes.
And they don't get true stories from any of the political press they read, anything they see on TV. Your old shop, WJR,
Yeah.
From what I understand, Debbie Dingle is a fixture on there
Oh, yes.
and
They
has
love
been
her.
for some time. And so if that was all you saw was mainstream sources, you would think that this was just some great lady. In fact, she is lowest of the low. I compare her actually to Joe Biden, another guy we were told was so normal and was going to actually bring back norms and was going to
Mhm.
be the adults in the room. I think back to 2012. Mitt Romney is running against Barack Obama. Joe Biden says to a group of black voters that Romney wants to put them back in chains.
Yes.
So you have a
Right.
Democrat
Yeah.
raising the specter of slavery, which was a Democrat jobs program, just low scale wages,
Mhm.
to scare black people. So you're saying that Republicans are going to do the slavery that we did.
Right.
And the media is so stupid it doesn't connect those obvious dots and answer those obvious questions. And so as the scales lift from people's eyes, they're going to realize, well, wait a minute. If the stories I'm reading about Debbie Dingle are fake, why do I think the stories I'm reading about Gretchen Whitmer are real?
Exactly. I mean, it's just the way they treat Debbie Dingle is the same way they treat people like Gretchen Whitmer. They, in a sense, seem to idolize these people. And I think part of Debbie Dingle's charm is that, she shows up on Fat Tuesday at every media outlet and provides punchkis for all the reporters and journalists and talk show hosts. And
Oh,
she gives
yeah.
them a big smile and hugs around. And she's very disarming in her personality that way. And she talks about, I just wish people weren't so hateful and we were all civil with one another. But yet she goes out like this past October, we just saw that Donald Trump wants to create these internment camps and lock up not just Muslims, which she says he does, wants to ban Muslims from coming to the country. Not true. But that he wants to lock up political enemies like herself. She told Jay
Right.
Tapper, you might find me in an internment camp because that's Donald Trump. He's like Hitler. He wants to go after his political enemies, which what they've been doing with him for so long. And I've never been able to find any occasion where Trump has even inferred that he would do this. Yet she's the civil one here. So after all the hate that Dingle has spewed towards Donald Trump during the campaign, Debbie Dingle now says she looks forward to working with Donald Trump. Do you think that she has changed her mind about him, or was all that blather about how Trump wants to tear apart this country using violence and violent methods, was that really just a disingenuous attempt to keep him from the Oval Office?
I think Debbie Dingle, just like Joe Biden, is the ultimate cynic. And she will trade on that reputation of kindness and civility and, oh, what a nice lady, and say some of the most vile things you've ever heard. Trump's going to put me in an internment camp? See, Tom, it didn't matter whether it was true. It
Right.
mattered that it was effective. And
Yep.
here's the problem, Debbie. It wasn't effective. It wasn't effective. You don't have credibility. And so Senator Mallory McMorrow, our state senator,
Mhm.
redhead, very, very well known. She's making a name. She clearly has visions beyond Lansing. She put out an Instagram talking about, Democrats knocked on more doors. Democrats called more phones. But the problem was when they showed up, people didn't want to hear from Democrats.
Hmm.
So they reached out to plenty of people. People just didn't like them and didn't like what they had to say. And so
Mallory
Debbie Dingle
McMorrow-
is that. She's not
Ye-
some deviation from the norm. If you don't like Democrats, you can't like Debbie Dingle. Look, is she a nice lady? I saw a post the other day on Twitter with Roop Raj, and he ran into, they were all at Metro Airport, and Debbie
Yes.
Dingle was there, and this guy, Brian Panabecker, with Auto Workers for Trump. And it was this kind of living moment of bipartisanship. Oh my God, we can all get along and, sip Diet Sprite together as we wait for our plane.
Yeah.
Okay. But I've also seen her, say that a man was credibly accused of sex crimes and thus should lose out on a chance to be Secretary of Defense without an investigation, a charge, a conviction, anything.
Yeah.
We said it's true, so it must be true.
Yeah, and it's the new, I think it was phrased this way, that there was the Me Too movement. Now this is the, credibly charged is now the new phrase that they're going to use. And it's like, what do you mean
That's
credibly
exactly
charged?
it.
Yeah, he was accused by people that hate his guts, or there was some woman that came out, but there's never enough evidence to charge him or to prove that that was the case. And I think about this, that we've gone through this so many times before. And Pete Hegseth is who you're talking about. A good guy, knows what he's talking about. He's been tested on the battlefield and in the political realm, and I think he did a fine job before the Senate committee, who asked him some pretty difficult questions, and he was able to effectively combat those questions. It's like I get tired of it. I think in some way though that this rhetoric does work because the media supports it. They're behind it in large, but again, to your point, in times past that we've talked about, the media's credibility also is going by the wayside. People are now waking up to, boy, they've been lying to me as well. Not just the Debbie Dingles, but the media, not just the Mallory McMorrows, who, by the way, I think she's correct that people didn't want to hear the Democratic message, but she's been one of the most vocal
Oh yeah.
DEI proponents out there. I mean, I asked her a frank question, like, listen, you were so offended that, like, Senator Lana Tice prayed on the Senate floor to start the session that you walked out and came back and got national attention for saying that she's falsely claiming that there is these pedophiles who want to groom young children, and that's what LGBTQ and all this stuff is going on. And I asked her, I said, well, if a little kid went to a teacher in school and said, Mr. Barnes-Smith, I'm a girl, but I would really like to become a boy. I know I'm only in second grade. I asked Mallory McMorrow, what would you say to that child if that was you? She said, I would completely affirm that child, and I would help that child change her gender. I'm like, well, that's the Democratic message, and that's what people don't like. And I think that they've lost the trust of the American people as a result.
They have.
Of that.
I mean, so let's think about the life cycle of credibly accused. You have a fake accusation that generates a police report. No charges are made, but then you can write stories about the news report. Fake stories.
Yes.
So you have a fake
Right.
allegation, then you have fake news stories. Then you have a fake Indian like Senator Liz Warren of Massachusetts. No joke, she's 1/1000th Native American,
Right.
but used that to get into, as a Harvard professor to
Yes.
attain all these benefits for herself. You talk about stolen valor. She stole that feather. That stolen feather that she did, and she's beloved for it. So you have fake allegations, fake stories, a fake Indian repeats them, and then the fake civil woman, the fake grandmother you never had, Debbie Dingle. And so what they do is they take the fake news story and say, that's credible, which the news story makes the allegation credible. And the politician repeating it means now you're credibly accused.
Yes.
When the genesis of it could be entirely false. It could be made out of whole cloth, but by that point it hardly matters because you're credibly accused just because the same lie has been repeated with multiplicity.
It's the same tactic they used when they were trying to pin, this dossier on Donald Trump, the Russian dossier, when they leaked the information to, I think it was to Yahoo News. Yahoo News reports on it, and then they cite Yahoo News as this credible report in order to give that's this a tactic. And that's why there's a partnership between these people and the federal government and with the media. And that's why it seems to be so credible. And so it's so difficult to push back and to kind of pull back the layers of the onion on these things. It takes years, and it's finally working. Donald Trump's resilience in that effort to peel back the onion, he's finally pulled back enough layers so people can actually see, yeah, he's right. They've been not telling the truth to us for a long time. So one final question, I think, to Debbie Dingle. I asked her, if she aligned herself, because I was trying to expose the fact that she's not this moderate Democrat, right?
Right.
And she was trying to claim that the Democratic Party is so united while the Republican Party is in disarray. They have disunity in that. I'm like, well, that's argumentation. Doesn't mean they're not unified. But anyway, I asked her, okay, so you say you're moderate and that you're all aligned. So I asked her if she aligned herself with Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, who was at that time spewing all this anti-Semitic rhetoric and claiming that Israel is, purposefully killing children. And Israel itself needs to be defunded and not supported by the United States while ignoring the regular terrorist activities of Hamas. And Debbie Dingle surprised me, actually. She responded by saying not only does she stand with Rashida Tlaib, but she doubled down and said this is all Israel's fault after October 7th. And they're the war criminal here. And I was able to pull back a little bit of the layer on her a little bit. But do we really know, do you think, Debbie Dingell's positions on these things? I know you've looked at her record. And does her voting record match her moderate Democratic rhetoric that she puts out there?
No, she is down for the team. She says what they want said. She votes how they want people to vote. I mean, she voted against something that's become common sense in America. The idea that if someone who's here illegally in the first place, which, is illegal, if that person were to commit a sex crime, that person should be deported. She voted against that.
Yeah.
There's another one where we're going to keep boys out of your daughter's locker room, out of their bathroom, and off their medal stand in athletic competition. Mm-hmm. She voted against that. Yeah. So this is not someone who's sitting down and making independent judgments about what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what's good for Michigan, or what's good for America. Debbie Dingell, first, last, and always says what's good for the Democrats. Mm-hmm. And that's not good enough.
100%.
That's not civil.
She voted also against prohibiting residents of Washington, D.C. who are non-citizens from voting in elections. That's another thing. That all these things that come out, if you look at her record, are very indicative that she is a far left, progressive, almost socialist Democrat. Well, I guess she's just, as you said, she's committed to the party. What do you think?
To me, that's even more dangerous. Is someone who comes off as reasonable and buttoned up when, in fact, they're an extremist. I want someone to be Rashida Tlaib. Rashida Tlaib breathes fire, and she lives and dies by that and says, this is who I'm going to be. Whoever likes it, likes it. Whoever doesn't, doesn't. That's honest.
Yes.
You don't have to like it, but that's honest. Rashida Tlaib is as honest about who she is as Lisa McClain is on the right about who she is. That I like. These people in the middle trying to, Fred Upton acting like he was a Republican when in fact he's basically a Democrat. Mm-hmm. Debbie Dingell acting like she's a moderate Democrat when in fact she's as far left as Rashida Tlaib. Say it with your chest. Be who you really are. I don't like any of you people. You're politicians. There's probably some bad reason that leads you as a politician on a fall Saturday when I'm sitting there watching the Michigan game with my beautiful girl and petting our dogs and we're having a good old time. There's probably a bad reason as opposed to a good reason that you left your family to come knock on my door and ask for my vote. It's because you want power. And so I find that whole impulse to be gross. So none of them are good people. They pretty much can't be. So we have to get out of this idea that there are these just nice grandmotherly politicians out there. In fact, these are people who all covet power, and that's bad per se.
Absolutely. And that is why it's imperative that whoever we put in that role by the vote of the people is someone who's going to always be held accountable to make sure that the people are still governing this state or this municipality or this country. And that whoever it is, whether it be a Donald Trump or a Joe Biden, or if it was going to be a Mitt Romney or Barack Obama, whoever's in power always has to answer to the people. And that's why the field of journalism has failed so dramatically, because the journalists were supposed to be the voice of the people, and they have become, part and parcel of this entire ruse and this political gamemanship that's been going on for several years now.
Because the people don't have anything to offer you. So when you go into the other estates, we're the fourth estate, right? So you have the aristocracy, you got the ruling class, you got the clergy, you got the normal people. The normal people can't offer you anything. The clergy can pray for you, but that's just about it. But the royals can offer position and invites to the solstice party, that end of the year interview with Gretchen Whitmer. They can offer you certain lures to tell the stories they want told. And so it's just human nature. We gravitate to groups. And the whole theory actually of the fourth estate is that we would be such a strong tribe independently that we wouldn't need to glom on to the others. A politician, Charlie LaDuff talks about this all the time. A journalist should drink with the public. Too many of these guys drink with politicians in private.
Yeah.
That's not
Well,
how it should go.
I've witnessed it time and time again where the people in the newsroom, they just want to be friends with these people they're
Yes.
interviewing, and they become friends. They go, I don't know, playing golf together, as you said, drinking together. They're pals. And then
And
they
I have no
faint.
problem with being friends. You just can't cover them as friends. That's the only thing. Like, so I can make friends with the Republican politician because I mainly cover Democrats and how they're messing things up. So you might help me with sourcing on that story,
Yeah.
but my targets are not who I'm you know what I mean? My
Right,
targets
exactly.
are not my friends.
Exactly.
And that's the real problem.
I have a ton of respect. It's like I'll make this analogy to football in the NFL. And I was watching some games over the weekend. Sadly, the Lions lost on Saturday night. But what I've noticed about these football
Yeah.
players is that a lot of them are friends, right? So after
Yes.
the game, before the game, they're chatting it up, they're hugging each other. But during the
Yeah.
game, they are tackling each other. They're trying to beat the snot out of each other because what matters is they're doing their job as a football player. And if you're a linebacker, you're going to try to do your darndest to tackle the quarterback, even though you guys were roommates in college. You know what I mean? So it's the same kind of. I think it's an
It's
effective
the
analogy.
wolf and the sheepdog.
Yes.
You have to do your job while
Yes.
you're clocked in, while you're
Yep.
on duty, because you make each other better.
Right.
The iron sharpens iron. But
It's the
yeah,
good night, Sam.
when you,
Good
when
night,
you log
Bob.
off, yeah, it's over.
Yeah. What do you think the real reason is behind the hatred that these people have towards Donald Trump specifically? Is it that these leftist groups just simply love these causes like illegal immigrant rights and abolishing prisons or defunding police or free health care or wealth redistribution and the Green New Deal and they hate Israel, that kind of thing. They hate free markets. They hate capitalism. Is that what they really are all about? And that Trump embodies the opposition to these Marxist values?
I wouldn't even say it's just Democrats. I would say it's both parties. I would say MAGA is effectively a third party that took over the Republican Party.
Mhm.
And the real danger is that when Donald Trump goes away, like in 2026, he's not going to appear on the ballot. He'll never appear on another ballot. What is going to be the Republican Party after Donald Trump? Because if you go back to the Mitt Romney type stuff, those guys were losers even then. They're not going to
Yeah.
start winning now
Yeah.
after you've seen someone who could actually win. And so what I think they hate about Donald Trump, in the beginning, it was 2016, he won when he did not have permission to win. I said, and a lot of people who are familiar with politics or cover politics, it was a conventional wisdom that Donald Trump could never win in 2016. And so a lot of people had egg on their faces, and rather than adjust, they decided that this guy had to be the worst person in the world. He made them all look bad.
Yeah.
I think another thing he does that makes people look bad is he actually tries to solve problems. Like this anecdote that's been passed around about Trump saying, well, wait a minute, these cartels, they have to do business out of somewhere. The drugs have to be kept somewhere. Why don't we bomb the drugs? You're not supposed to ask questions like that.
Right.
Not because it's a bad idea. I don't know if it would work or if it wouldn't work. But you're not supposed to ask questions like that because questions like that point towards solutions. And that's the unforgivable sin. You're not supposed to solve things. This is supposed to just go on forever unsolved as military fills up their chest with accolades and everyone's a general. Everyone has more accolades than Eisenhower, but nobody in the military has won anything in 3 decades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right
so
about
he
that.
upsets the apple cart. That's what he does.
Yeah, you're right about that. I think the issue comes down to power once again, because if you solve the issue, then what are you as a member of Congress going to run on in 2 years, or a member of the
Bingo.
Senate in 6 years, or as the next
Abortion.
Abortion,
Republican.
right.
There's a subset of Republicans who don't
Right.
like Donald Trump because he took away their fundraising letter.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Roe
You're
is no
absolutely right,
longer a
because
federal issue.
they could have solved that probably decades ago, but they didn't
Decades.
because it was, in one sense, a cash cow. So those
For
people are
both
just as
sides.
skilled. That's what I'm saying.
Everybody liked being able to say abortion is on the ballot. And in 2024, think about it. So 2022, right? Michigan,
Hmm.
limitless
Right.
abortion. It was the worst thing in the world. I hate that it happened. But but it made Democrats like Gretchen Whitmer, who was Biden's campaign co-chair, it made her overconfident. It made her believe that if I just say abortion 3 times, Beetlejuice is going to pop out and win me the election. And what happened is they were a victim of their own success. Because you won limitless abortion in 2022, you couldn't say abortion was on the ballot in 2024. It
Even though they
actually
did.
took away their biggest strength. And that's why it didn't work, because no one believed it. It's not the rhetoric that works, it's when the rhetoric feels true in your gut. And that was their problem. Whether it's telling me that Kamala Harris is running a flawless campaign, that abortion's on the ballot, or that Joe Biden is sentient. Psyops have to be a little bit true to work,
Yeah.
and they're just offering pure psyops at this point. That's why
Yeah.
they're so ineffective.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like Joe Biden's final farewell speech that now we're walking into a dictatorship and the oligarchs are going to be in control, while he's at the same time, placing a pin or giving a medal to George Soros, one of the biggest oligarchs this world has ever seen, and a huge funder of Joe Biden and many other people's campaigns. It's just ironic people can't see this stuff. What would you hope to see today? Not just with the inauguration of Donald Trump, but he's expected to sign, I think, about 200 executive orders. Are you expecting a busy day? And what would you like to see Donald Trump do, like priority-wise, on his first day?
Well, our friends in TV news, they're going through some struggle times right now. The anti-Trump fervor is not what it is. One thing I'd love to see on TV tonight, 7 o'clock, 8 p.m., let's get some of those mass deportations going. Like, I want to see like cops. I want Border Patrol agents wearing body cameras. I want to see on patrol live with the Border Patrol. I want to see people rounded up. I want to see them put on the flights. And if there's some kind of flight tracker you can watch to make sure that the plane actually does land back in Guadalajara. It's not going to land in Green Bay instead. I want to see that. So if we could some kind of get that on Amazon Prime somehow, get that on YouTube TV,
Yeah.
give us something to talk about,
Yeah,
President Trump.
and get a big box of popcorn with you as you're watching. And just so people
I'll have my
understand,
popcorn ready in the event this happens.
just so people understand what we're talking about, what we're discussing here, and it's not, insensitive to say what James just said, because the fact of the matter is who they're going after in places like Chicago, and I think like dozens of cities now, municipalities across the country, are the most violent criminals in this country who are here illegally. That's who they're going after. So when you see the Channel 7s of the world, or the Channel 4s, or the Channel 2s, and whatever you're watching, spew this information that, this is heartbreaking that he's rounding up, and maybe this is the internment camps that David Dickson was trying to say, that they're rounding up people who are innocent. No, they're not innocent. These are some of the most dangerous people in the world who are now in this country, and they need to be taken out. So yeah, grab your popcorn. Maybe we can do a big stream fest together, watching this all together. If they were to do this, it'd be wonderful. James, I really appreciate what you do and what you
Tom,
write
thank
about,
you.
what you talk about, and it's just wonderful to have you back in the program. Thanks so much. James Dickson with Enjoyer.com. James, thanks. Appreciate it.
Be blessed, Tom.
Yeah, blessings to you as well, my friend. This is it's a big day, and I think there's going to be, as James alluded to, there's going to be many executive orders that Donald Trump, he's going to be getting right to work. And one of the things he's talked about, and one of the reasons why he was elected, was to deal with this crisis of illegal immigration and the deportation aspect of it. The deportation has to happen. Listen, I have a sister-in-law that had to be deported, okay? And she went willingly. It was like her visa ran out. She had to go. She went back to her home country. No problem. That's the law of the land. None of us argued that it was unfair. It wasn't right. It was right. And that was the agreement. These people, though, don't even have a visa. They're here illegally. And they came across the border illegally, despite the attempts from the Biden administration and the Whitmer administration in this state of Michigan trying to categorize them as legal immigrants when they are in fact not. So the second inauguration today of Donald Trump, it is going to usher in. This is the past inauguration, the setup for that of Donald Trump, but this is going to usher in what they're calling a revolution of common sense. That's how Donald Trump is portraying it. And the whole nation there is abuzz as Trump returns to the presidency alongside Vice President J.D. Vance, vowing to usher in this thrilling new era of national success. There's going to be a lot of security there, of course. There's still a divided nation, but Donald Trump's inauguration promises sweeping changes from day one for everybody's benefit, Democrat or Republican, and he means it, unlike the others. In his address today, he's going to be brought in, I think it's about noon today, just before noon. Donald Trump is set to deliver this clear call to action, as he phrases it. He says, it's time for us to once again act with courage, vigor, and the vitality of history's greatest civilization. And according to some experts that were shared with some media outlets, he's going to highlight the momentum behind what he sees as a transformative shift in American governance. And it's all rooted in like practicality and bold decision-making. He's going to solve problems, as James Dickson just said. And the agenda behind Donald Trump, it's going to start right away. Today, January 20th, 2025, more than 200 executive actions planned for his first day in office. That's just the first day. We're not even talking about the whole week ahead. They include fortifying the southern border. He's not been shy about addressing that issue. Slashing energy costs. Good. By how is he going to do that? He's going to get rid potentially of this push towards the Green New Deal. He's going to be scrapping these diversity, equity, and inclusion mandates across these federal agencies. Why? Because they are racist. They are prioritizing a person's skin or gender over their merits, over meritocracy. Are you even fit for the job? No, but you got the color skin we like better, so we're going to give you the job anyway. It's pure racism, and it's gender discrimination. So the whole goal of Donald Trump is to restore a government centered on common sense and alleviate the burdens on working families, like the taxes that you've been lied to that are only been given to the billionaires in this country. Not true. I am almost the opposite of a billionaire, and I benefited greatly. My wife and I did from the tax cuts in the Donald Trump era. So he says, Donald Trump does that today we start the complete restoration of America. That's what he's going to say. He's going to say, as he underscores his vision of unity through action. Watch him do it. And his supporters, obviously, they're energized. They're viewing this inauguration as a turning point, while critics are bracing for a policy revolution that's already, stirring the political waters. There's been some, a lot of protests over the weekend in Washington, D.C., that Donald Trump is coming to take the office. But anyway, that was his first inauguration. We're there. It's not going to be outside this time around. It's just too cold. And for the safety of everybody, they're moving indoors. Good. So what about Congress? They are gearing up, Congresses, to back Donald Trump's bold agenda. There's Senator John Thune there, and now he is the Senate Majority Leader in the U.S. Senate. And the winds of change are blowing through Washington, and Senate Majority Leader John Thune says that Congress is ready to deliver on the mandate that Americans gave President Donald Trump. After years of all the skyrocketing inflation, the border chaos, diminished global influence, absolutely, Senator Thune there is promising a new chapter defined by economic vitality, national security, and really decisive leadership. This is what we're going to do, and this is why we're going to do it, kind of thing. So he wrote an op-ed about this, Senator Thune did, in Fox News, and he outlined Congress's plans to back Donald Trump's agenda, starting with securing the border, first things first, and reversing the Biden-era energy policies that, he's making the argument that weaken the nation's energy independence. I don't think you can argue against that unless you're being disingenuous. Key priorities are going to be extending the Donald Trump tax cuts that were passed during Donald Trump's first term, and then advancing tough border security legislation like the Laken Riley Act, which people like Debbie Dingell voted against. It's crazy. That act would require immigration and customs enforcement to detain illegal immigrants who commit violent crimes. How could you vote against that? You should ask your member of Congress, why is that a priority to you? And they'll give you some answer that doesn't really jive with the actual reading of the bill that they rejected. It's going to close loopholes that allow dangerous individuals back on the streets. Take them out, put them in prison, and take them out of the country. John Thune said that we're turning promises into action. Actually, the promises they made on the campaign trail, they're actually going to deliver, is what he's saying. He's pointing to the Senate's imminent vote on the bill, the Lincoln-Riley Act, aiming to have it on the president's desk within days. And Donald Trump will sign it within days, I'm sure. So congressional Republicans, they're also planning to use the Congressional Review Act to dismantle a lot of the Biden-era regulations that they say have stifled businesses and burdened families in this country. Meantime, Senate committees are expediting confirmation hearings for Donald Trump's nominees to ensure that his administration is fully equipped for the road ahead. If you remember the last time around in 2017, the road to the confirmation of these nominees was rough. And the blockades they put up in his way, which they've been trying to do this time around, they're not doing it effectively this time, but they did before, and it was a rough go. But Senator Thune here, he's promising a swift, unified action to reclaim America's strength. Good for him. All right, what about the other side, the other chamber? It's the House of Representatives and the House Speaker there, Mike Johnson. He says Trump's second term could bring a golden age for America. What does he mean by that, a golden age? Well, the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, he is urging Americans to rally behind Donald Trump as he begins his second term as president, calling it a very unique opportunity for national renewal. He also wrote a Fox News op-ed, and he characterized the past 4 years as a time of unnecessary hardship, which was caused by what he calls America Last policies under President Joe Biden. He criticized America First policies Joe Biden has. And so Mike Johnson says, listen, Joe Biden's open border policies have left our cities ransacked and our state budgets bankrupt. And he said that fentanyl has poured into our schools, poisoning our children, while 40-year high inflation has made Americans poorer and priced young people out of home ownership. This is real stuff that's happening, and I know plenty of young people who want to buy a house, can't afford it because of the skyrocketing cost of housing. And it's not going to be fixed by the government now funding housing and providing, like Kamala Harris wanted to do, free down payments. Here's $25,000 for your down payment. Go buy a house. That's not how it works. That is socialism, and that's going to ruin the economy and only drive up the cost of living, including that of housing. Johnson there, he lauded Trump's record of economic growth. You can look at his record. It's a pretty prosperous country we had under Donald Trump's leadership. You talk about energy independence. That was a big deal that Johnson highlighted for regarding Donald Trump's first term. He'll do the same thing again. Talked about national security. Absolutely. That was during his first term, and he's framing Johnson as Donald Trump's reelection as a chance to restore those achievements. Let's bring him back. So the plan, Johnson says, is built on deregulation, securing the border, promoting fossil fuels, and rooting out divisive woke ideologies from federal policies. And this, he argues, are the cornerstone of a new golden age that will bring prosperity to every American family. It's common sense, and it's going to be central to the presidency of Donald Trump, and now central to the goals of the House of Representatives and the Senate. And he says all of us are going to succeed together if we go this route, unified as a country. So it's setting the tone. These comments are for a Republican agenda, focused on reversing what they describe as 4 years of Biden-era decline. It's like the 4 lost decades under the Biden administration. Speaking of Joe Biden, we kind of figured this might be coming, but he did it. Just a few hours left in office, Joe Biden pardoned Anthony Fauci, General Milley, and the January 6th committee staff in his final hours in office. Very controversial last-minute move that Biden issued these sweeping pardons to Dr. Anthony Fauci, retired General Mark Milley, members of the staff of the January 6th Select Committee, just hours before President-elect Donald Trump is set to be inaugurated. And the decision, framed as this act exceptional circumstances is already, as you might imagine, sparking outrage among conservatives who view it as a shield against accountability, is putting people way above the law. When Biden said no one's above the law, he didn't mean it. He meant, what I meant was we are above the law. Anyone I say is above the law. It's not people who have served time and he's pardoning their sentences or whatever. He's actually shielding people from ever being charged in the first place. He calls it proactive, I guess, skewing accountability. I mean, is the bottom line here. And Joe Biden tries to justify the pardons by claiming the individual has faced unjustified and politically motivated prosecutions. The things that he absolutely supported while he was president against the conservatives. Obviously, critics see that differently. Fauci was once lauded as the face of America's COVID-19 response, has been accused of misleading the public about the pandemic's origins. And I believe he absolutely did mislead. He kept changing the story about what was effective preventive measures against COVID as well. And then in particular, he was dismissing this whole thing of a lab leak theory, that it was false information, it was disinformation, when it turns out actually it's true. It's the most likely scenario, even though Fauci tried to cover it up. And he tried to cover up the gain-of-function research that he was to help funding in that very laboratory. And he said he denied the whole thing, but it was true. And then you got General Milley, who was, infamously referred to Donald Trump as a wannabe dictator, openly challenged the incoming president while providing testimony to the January 6th committee. He wanted Donald Trump out of office too. And you can call that a coup. But adding fuel to the fire, Biden extended pardons to key figures like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, whose work on the January 6th committee has been criticized as a partisan hit job. It absolutely was. Even though Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger were technically Republicans, they were absolutely filled with rage and hate towards Donald Trump. And the conservatives are just furious about this, and they're arguing that these pardons are less really about justice. If you want justice, then take it through the judicial system that you just said a few days ago was absolutely A-OK, right on the money. And how dare you, describe the judicial system as somehow impartial. If you don't believe it's impartial, then just why don't you let them walk through it? And if they're innocent, they'll be let free. This is less about justice. I agree with them. More about protecting Biden's allies from future investigations, just like he did to his son. So, as Donald Trump is preparing to take office, the pardons are setting the stage for a showdown over accountability and the rule of law in Washington, the rule of law that Joe Biden is above, and also anyone who he says should be as well. Okay, that was breaking news this morning, and I wanted to bring that up to you. Very important. Cameron Harris spotted that, so thanks to Cameron for bringing that. It's going to be a very interesting day today. I'm not sure how many comments we have on this, but I would like to know what you feel, what you would like to see at the inauguration amongst the 200 executive orders that Donald Trump wants to put into effect today. He's going to be very busy, not just with all the pomp and circumstance surrounding the inauguration, but he's going to get to work right away, putting things into effect. And after he becomes president, there could be some action in these various cities in terms of rooting out the most dangerous illegal immigrants in this country. ICE is going to be back in business. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And they are reportedly already having plans of raids and deportations in cities like Chicago. So we'll be watching that very, very closely. All right, let's bring up comments here. Let's start with the first one here that Cameron Harris is watching. Jim Chikowski, as Bill Bennett would say, it's morning in America. God bless in America. Yes, indeed, it is morning in America, and it is the start of a new era. It's the second Trump era, but I think this is a different one, and I think it's going to be much more effective as Donald Trump's first term was. You got enough people now who have been disillusioned by this Democratic Party and these games they've been playing that are very dangerous and violent for so many years. And now there's a lot of support for this incoming still Donald Trump's second administration. Jim, good to see you. Thank you so much. Let's bring up another one here. William Yanusades. I know you. I see you on Facebook a lot. Preemptive pardon equals we know you are a crook and soon will be caught. Yeah, it's a frank admission William, that these people are guilty. Because if he didn't believe they were not guilty, if he didn't believe they were guilty, he would not have given them a pardon. He would just say, hey, listen, if charges are coming, they'll be proven innocent, right? Because he's so uh, in such belief that the judicial system in this country is to be trusted. Obviously, he doesn't believe that, and he thinks these people are guilty. I agree with you, William. Thank you for your comment. Let's take another one here. It is the engineer's back. Hi, how are you? Good to see you, the engineer. I think the last-minute pardons by Biden is a national disgrace. Speaker of the House Johnson said Biden is not aware of an EQ he signed, EO he signed, an executive order he signed days earlier. The man isn't mentally competent. You know, the engineer, I was thinking this too, and I thought, okay, this I don't think is Joe Biden making these decisions here and picking them out. I think it's the people all around him, the Valerie Jarrett's of his administration. Those people who are saying, before you go, we got to stick it to the man, essentially, and we got to pardon these people who are our allies, who did our bidding to take down Donald Trump once and for all. They failed in that endeavor, but let's at least, protect them, keep them from the harms of prison. Because if investigations start, they're going to not only reveal stuff about them, but probably stuff about us too. So by pardoning them, you prevent investigations. You're also protecting us as well from disclosure of all those things that happened under our watch. The engineer, thanks so much. Good to see you. Let's bring up another one here. Try to get through these. Arlene Pearson is back. Hi, Arlene. Good to see you. Someone X saying federal pardons don't prevent states prosecuting those preemptively pardoned by Biden. Let's hope some states take the initiative to prosecute them justly. Let's hope mainstream media reports the truth, not the leftist Democratic Party narrative, as they have done for years. I do hope, for your last point there, that the reporters in this country take a hard look at themselves. I don't have a lot of confidence they will, because they so believe in their ideologies that have been ingrained in them by academia and these degrees they got majoring in journalism. They were told what journalism is really not. It is now what journalism is. It's basically activism. And I think a lot of journalists have been taught that activism is the job of the journalist, when in fact it's not, as we know, and as Arlene knows. But to the other point, will states take out? I think they should. Listen, how many states have gone after Donald Trump? There was Georgia, right? There was New York, and a couple different instances went after Donald Trump. And some of these were federal laws that they say Donald Trump violated, but they somehow found a way to charge Donald Trump with a federal law in a state court. So I don't know if these attorney generals in a variety of states like Texas or wherever, certainly not Michigan, certainly not California, unless something drastically changes in those states as well. But yeah, I'd like to see that happen, and it'd be very interesting to watch as time progresses. Let's see. Let's hope that that no one truly is above the law. Arlene, thanks so much. Let's bring up another one. Vaughn Westerby. Hi, Vaughn. Good to see you. Why does the media in the Detroit area keep making Debbie Dingell relevant, like your former employer? Why? Vaughn, I don't know. It's sickening to me. And I remember one time I brought up this whole issue with Debbie Dingell, and she was making a claim about Republicans. And I said, well, I see the exact same thing happening in your party. And I gave a real good reason as to why I thought that. And it was a severe pushback on me for bringing that up to someone who's beloved at that station, Debbie Dingell. And Debbie Dingell is beloved by, listen, she is a nice person. She's very friendly to talk to, but I think that's part of the shtick, unfortunately. And I didn't used to believe that. I used to really think, oh, she is moderate. But then I began to pay close attention just in my conversations with her over the air. But in her voting record, I thought, wait a second here. She's got a lot of us really deceived here. She's not a moderate. Her positions are very far left. And you can go down the list when it comes to DEI, LGBTQ, what parents are allowed to do in schools, when it comes to illegal immigration, when it comes to what kind of books, kindergartners should be allowed to see in your school libraries, those types of things. She's pretty far left. How much control we should have over people's speech in the United States on social media, because she's classifying it as dangerous rhetoric or disinformation. Disinformation, misinformation, those words need to go away. Because just because you don't believe in someone's opinion or agree with it doesn't equate to disinformation. So I hope that becomes more and more of a red flag when somebody says it to the majority of Americans. Yeah, thanks for your comment. Appreciate it. One more. Let's bring up maybe more than one more. Not sure how many we have left. We have 3 more left. Carol F. Hi, Carol. We're going to go through these quickly. Deb D. voted against the Laken Riley Act. Illegal criminal as opposed to legal criminal. Yes, it's amazing that she did, but she did. Like, she doesn't want, if you are an illegal immigrant, you have more rights in this country than a legal citizen who has committed a crime. If you've committed a violent crime and you're an illegal immigrant, you should be left alone. The Laken Riley Act would counter that falsehood by holding these people accountable. And for whatever reason, whoever's in her ear, or maybe it's in her own heart, she doesn't want that to happen. So Laken Riley, one of many people in this country who have been killed by dangerous and violent illegal immigrants, she did not support. Thanks, Carol. Let's bring up another one here. Catherine L'Esperance is back. Hi, Catherine. I hope we Michiganders aren't punished due to more power to the states. Whitmer has hurt our state. Number 1, abortion protected in Constitution. You're right. We have a very strange state. Michigan has become one of the most far-left states in the country in a very short amount of time. And it was purple. It was kind of moderate, and 2018 comes along, and Gretchen Whitmer, who's portrayed herself as a moderate, started taking a far left with her authoritarianism tendencies with COVID. And she was allowed to do that until finally the Supreme Court ruled against it. They wouldn't rule that way now because now they're a majority Democrat court, but they had one person who was one person majority in the Supreme Court, which obviously can see what she was doing was unconstitutional. So that was the beginning of it. And then she gets the House and the Senate, and then she took it far, far left with a lot of radical ideologies that shouldn't be anywhere near the state legislature, never should be ruled on, these unconstitutional laws. And she was able to change the Constitution to allow some of these things to go down. And she did it in a very deceitful way. Yeah, it's a tough state we're in right now. One more comment, then we'll have to say so long for now. It is Christopher Jakulski. Hey, welcome back, Christopher. Good to see you. Celebrating with the East Side Republicans in the same spirit of your election night watch party. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Christopher. Yeah, that was a fun party. Really appreciate it. And yeah, there's a lot of celebration happening today because, you can call it Republican wins. You can call it common sense wins. And I think it's common sense. I think even a lot of Democrats can finally admit if they get away from their hatred of Donald Trump and all the hateful rhetoric from Joe Biden that's been seeped into their mindset, and they've been brainwashed with all of this. They're kind of allowing themselves to be set free from those ideologies and realize, okay, actually, these Republicans really are not bad. They're kind of common sense here. So, yeah, celebrating along with you. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching today. I hope to see you back here. We got another program, of course, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, streaming live, always living on Facebook, X, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. God bless you. We'll see you back here tomorrow.